Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this week's webisode. This week, we're talking about safety and well-being reimagined. My name is Sandiso. I am a director at Kui Studios, and we're having these conversations in relation to companies having to rethink and reimagine their organization. Currently, given the current pandemic, but we know there have been other historical challenges like economic downturns, etc. So really it's a time for us to encourage organizations to rethink how they do business for the interim and also for the future. So I am not here alone on this call. I've got Mokhao and I've got Zamo, and I believe Baba will just join shortly. She's just having some technical challenges that we couldn't avoid, and we couldn't keep you guys waiting because you guys have been here waiting since 2 o'clock. So we do apologize for the late start, and I hope we can sort out the technical challenges. I'll just briefly talk about Zamo and Mokhao. So Zamo is a clinical psychologist at Tara Hospital. He is a Vitsi. Mokhao is a chef and author, best-selling author. She has a cookbook that you should go and get. She's from Takis. And I feel like it's necessary to say these things because they're young people and we can sort of relate to them. So it's nice to know that if you are from Takis or Vits, you're in a good space. So your colleagues are, or your former student colleagues are here. So I'm just going to set the context for today's conversation. So what we're talking about here is employee health. This just speaks to, us being healthy to be able to perform our duties. And I think right now it's quite relevant because it speaks to just the fact that coronavirus is a deadly virus. So please do note that I know we're on level 2, but I want to remind you that corona still kills. So even though we're on level 2, it still kills. So it's important that we actually look after ourselves and try and avoid big groups. I feel like people have forgotten that corona still kills because it's level 2. I just felt like I needed to remind the room that people are dying. So yes, please keep safe. Please do not avoid parties, weddings, funerals if you can, because it's known that corona is caught at these public events, these large gatherings. So please be mindful of that. And what that means for organizations is people are having to stay off work for about 2 weeks to recover from corona, and that does cause some sort of disruption. And I'm hoping Mokhao will tell us what we can do to protect ourselves. I know vitamin C, zinc are the things to go by, but I'm sure there's some good natural foods that we could also eat that can help us with just building up our immune system. And then around safety, so we've been seeing that a lot of buildings are actually upgrading their safety measures. So I know mask is one of them, but even like just having glass sheets between yourself and the customer that you're dealing with. So I'm sure in mining as well, different safety measures have been taken, just to address the current situation. So how can companies collaborate to actually bring about more safer environments going forward? And then lastly, it's my favorite thing, employee well-being. It's become such an important topic right now. I see lots of companies building employee well-being programs because mental health is a challenge globally. It's something that we all go through, feeling lonely, feeling isolated, these are the challenges that you face. And so it's not like, I'm glad it's no longer like it's a taboo, like people are now openly saying, I'm currently depressed, I'm not okay. And I think we're learning that it's okay to not be okay, which is quite important as well. So really, it's a safe space to share that nowadays. As before, if you categorize yourself as depressed, you'd be seen as crazy. And I think now that's slowly starting to change. And I'm hoping that Zamo will just shed some light on mental health and well-being and what employers and employees can do around that space. So I am going to start the webinar, and I'm going to ask Mokhao, Zamo, to just firstly, as he responds to my question, he can also answer my question and also introduce himself. And so what I'd like Zamo to just talk about is maybe the stigmas that are affiliated with employee well-being. What can you say? What can't you say? I feel like I think I have a stigma against people with bipolar, because I think that is quite a serious mental health situation. And maybe it's not, maybe we all have bipolar, I don't know. But maybe if you can just talk about the stigmas that we're currently facing around this employee mental health, well-being, and so we no longer have these stigmas affiliated with these challenges. And so over to you, Zamo.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you for hosting such an important conversation. Thank you to my fellow panelists for joining us, and everybody that has made time during these very difficult times, I guess, to be here. And I imagine that there's a great deal of fatigue. So I do not take it for granted that you're all here. So as was previously said, I'm a clinical psychologist and work as a psychotherapist at Tara and other hospitals. But I'm also a director at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, where we harness a lot of information around wellness and the workplace, for example. And to speak specifically to your question, I mean, I wanted to look maybe at 3 points of contention when it comes to this. The first one is that I think that oftentimes employee wellness programs can be incredibly misleading and can be incredibly confusing, because in many ways they are not promoting wellness. They're responding to instances where there is illness. And that's where a lot of the stigma actually begins, is that those programs and those places and those sites and all those offices within the institution become incredibly unattractive and become spaces that people cannot really trust or find going to very easy. And one of the conversations that I have with a lot of institutions is, how do you transform your wellness programs to really be just that, to be proactive, to be promoting wellness, to be encouraging the investment in mental wealth, as opposed to just being reactive, which is also incredibly important in institutions. I think that there's also something about the stigma of diagnosis, especially of severe psychopathology. So you mentioned bipolar mood disorder, for example. And a lot of people will struggle with bipolar mood disorder, depression, and severe anxiety and substance abuse, those four being the four biggest. However, the stigma means a lot of people struggle in silence, and as a result, they're not treated. And oftentimes, when they're not treated, the behaviors exhibited, either really problematic behaviors or poor performance, means that those pathologies or those diagnoses further perpetuate themselves as stigmatizing. And that's something we need to think about and work with. And the biggest challenge there is really just to inform people what is bipolar, what is depression, what is anxiety, and what is substance abuse, so that we can know that 8 out of 10 people in all workplaces and spaces actually have one of those diagnoses. And then also informing people that there's a great deal of help to be gotten out there so that you do not have to struggle alone. The last point that I want to make very briefly, because of time, in response to your first question, is specifically related to burnout as well as COVID diagnosis. So what we've been tracking very closely, and I've been part of several teams, is seeing that there's a great deal of burnout that a lot of people are experiencing during this COVID time. And I won't go into detail, though working from home and also working within a pandemic is the most stressful thing that a lot of people would experience. Not only are you trying to stay alive, though there's this tacit expectation that you must also keep doing what you need to do. And a lot of institutions have not understood that that's very difficult to do. And we're seeing a great deal of burnout. People are burning out not just because of needing to work twice as hard, staying alive and doing their jobs, but also burning out because there's no longer rest and recreation. Their homes have been invaded. And so it's very difficult to kind of retreat and relax back home. And then, as I said lastly, the stigma of having a positive diagnosis. It's on the decline and it's waning. Though at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the work that we had to do was how do institutions work with individuals who have a positive diagnosis, who fortunately self-isolate and then come back knowing that after 14 days, they are not infectious. And we saw that there's a great deal of ostracizing, and the stigma that was there meant that a lot of people were struggling to come back to work, and a lot of colleagues experienced fractures in their relationships there. So maybe let me pause there for now. If there are any follow-up questions, I'm happy to engage.
Wow,
Hand
that
back
was
to
so
you, Sandy.
educational. My goodness, my goodness. And I actually personally feel the burnout because I think I'm working longer hours, longer days. And so I'm basically living at work, kind of, that's how I feel right now. And I didn't know the mental impact that it would have. I feel almost close to burnout. I feel like I need a holiday. So that was very, very interesting. At least I'm not like going crazy or anything like that. So Mocha, if you can just speak to us about, you're a chef and you're in the food business. If you can just tell us about, okay, so I'm feeling burnt out. Firstly, I don't have much time on my hands. Secondly, I'd want to know, like, in the limited time that I have, what can I make? What foods can I make? What should I be avoiding in terms of my dietary, so that I can have, high energies, be on top of my game in terms of mental fitness as well.
So hi everyone, my name is Morao, and as previously said, I'm a cookbook author and a chef. And I think particularly at this time, we are becoming increasingly aware of the importance of our health. So taking care of ourselves, especially our bodies, that is our first defense, especially with regards to this now pandemic. And we all need to learn new ways of being. That's new ways not only of cooking, of enjoying the foods that we love, the foods that we know that our bodies need. Also introducing new foods that are a lot healthier. I mean, that's not completely to take away from all the foods that we love that are indulgent and really a treat. So we are really having to not only find new recipes or new ideas, but ways of cooking the food that we normally eat in a much healthier way. So this means instead of deep frying, we are having to bake, to steam, to still enjoy all the foods that we really like, adding more vegetables. I mean, I think a lot of this information is out there and we all know it. Right now, we just need to really apply it. A lot of us have underlying conditions that we are dealing with in coupled with now this COVID, that is our TB, HIV, as well as obesity, that is a huge problem in South Africa. I think a lot of people don't realize actually that they are obese because it doesn't just show up in your body. So we're really having to take care of ourselves. And there are many foods that help in boosting our immunity. Citrus like oranges, strawberries, that are really accessible. It really isn't expensive. I know a lot of people have that misconception that eating healthy is inaccessible, that it's expensive. It really isn't. Replacing some of the refined sugars, refined fats with really healthy ones. So instead of using, certain oils to cook with, you can use more vegetable oils instead. Instead of refined sugars, you can rather use honey in your food. Just really small ways, small changes that don't take away from the experience of delicious and indulgent food, but still smart ways to tweak the food that we already eat to make it a lot healthier.
Thank you so much, Mocha. I'm going to come back to you and Zamo, and I would like you guys to start thinking about it already. I want to know from Zamo, like, what practical programs employers can implement around employee well-being. And Mocha, I'll come back to you as well. So the second question is, what have you seen working in terms of the work you've been doing around employee well-being and health organizations? What work have you done and how effective has it been? So for now, I'm going to jump to Mabo because her connection is up and running. She is having connectivity challenges, so if she does cut at some point, I'm going to have to just rejig the conversation. Hence, I told you guys the questions in advance. So I'm going to give Mabo an opportunity. I'm hoping that she can hear me. So Mabo, you work in the mining space. She works in Harmony Gold. And I want to speak more around the safety measures and you guys have had to take in the mining space in response to the current COVID pandemic. And in your response as well, Mabo, if you can please just introduce yourself and tell people who you are. Ooh, just lost her now. Okay. So, Zamo, over to you on that pre-question. Yeah.
Saying as a segue, maybe let me pause and
Mabo, can
do you want
you
me to
speak?
continue?
Are you on? Is the connection up and running? Hello, can you hear us? Mabo? No, she can't hear us. Gamo, please continue.
Cool. The first thing is that, I think that one of having spoken to a lot of industries and institutions of late, what used to be taken for granted can no longer be, including health and eating habits and dietary requirements. And we know the impact that has, a huge impact on our psychological well-being. Though succinctly, let me just say that for two things. One of them is that in the face of a pandemic, which is a virus, to keep healthy is not just an option. Actually, it's an essential requirement to boost your chances in terms of being able to survive the virus. So these things are not add-ons anymore. They are super indicators. They are variables that must absolutely be understood. And then similarly, with regards to then wellness programs, I think wellness programs need to really be innovative and understand that not only will there be a second pandemic, which by the way was coming anyway, which is a mental health pandemic that is upon us. The amount of depressions and PTSDs and grief and bereavement cases that are upon us are immense. In fact, the WHO has said that the mental health pandemic is the second wave that we're going to face. So that innovation requires them to take so seriously the severity and the importance of this. I'll give you an interesting stat. In South Africa alone, we've seen an increase, I think it's about 23% increase in suicides. And that is just on the rise. So we really need to appreciate how serious it is and how deadly it is. The second one, of course, is that it needs to really be integrated into the fabric of all institutions. It can no longer be that it's something that is separate just for a wellness person or the wellness team. Wellness in its entirety, in its kind of complex thinking, needs to be the responsibility of every line manager, every employee, and every employer in all institutions. So innovation, which requires taking seriously the severity and the seriousness of the impact of psychiatry and psychology, as well as the appreciation of how do you integrate it into everything and every being in your working spaces, are the keys, I think, for a lot of institutions and industries.
Thank you, Zamo. I'm going to give Mabo another opportunity to just chime in. Mabo, can you hear us? Are you taking this one?
Hi, afternoon, everyone. My apologies for a bad network connection. And Sandisa, I couldn't hear exactly how would you want me to come in from a mining perspective, but what I can share with the team, yes.
If you can just speak about the safety measures that have been taken in response. If you can speak to the safety measures that have been taken in response to the current COVID-19 pandemic, and what I know you guys opened, probably been 3 months in operation as opposed to everyone that's just recently opened their shops. So maybe just speak about the learnings we've had and also around safety and employee well-being in this current way. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. I think we could all acknowledge that mining it's quite different from other corporates or other industries. That safety really becomes our priority, and there are areas where you can isolate and some areas where you cannot isolate. For example, people working remotely are those. It's a very small percentage of our total population. So I think over and above the regulatory requirements in terms of mitigating the impact of COVID-19 into the mining industry, we went and really invested and focused more on the psychological and the emotional wellness of our employees. And one of the particular successes is what we call a quarantine program that really focuses on the employees, in that program. And it was a requirement that everyone that was returning from work needed to be isolated or quarantined for a period of 14 days. So we needed to actually make sure that our employees are actually taken good care of. And with this strategy, we then implemented that proactive care initiative, where in there we look at the emotional wellness, the adaptation, we look at understanding the stress levels of our employees and so forth. Because in mining, we strongly believe that a safety issue, safety is a mindset issue. So if our employees have got high stress levels, there is a risk of safety underground. So that is why we really focus more on the socio-psychological impact that it's got on an employee. And there's various programs that we have put in place, including that care initiative on the quarantine program.
Okay, thank you. And then Mocha, if you can just chime in there and just like what programs are you doing for corporations and helping them around employee well-being?
So we all know that during this time, teams still need to feel motivated. They still need to feel unified. So I'll just speak to what it is that I do. At the Lazy Makoti, we also offer cooking lessons, and they're obviously now virtual. So everyone would be doing it from the comfort of their own home, the comfort of their own kitchen. And it really just allows for everyone, it's only an hour, but it allows for everyone to have that time, to switch off from daily roles, their daily pressures and expectations, and also to switch on, to connect to everyone, to connect to their teams in a way they wouldn't have in a very relaxed setting, because they will be in their own homes. And it's also a chance to experience everyone, their colleagues, their managers, their bosses, in a way that they wouldn't usually. And a great chance to learn, as we said previously, to learn how to prepare food in a way that is a lot healthier and a lot more beneficial for our bodies right now.
Thank you so much, Mocha. Thank you. And then Azam, I've got a fresh question. Azamo, you can also just tell us about the products you provide for corporations as well around helping them with employee well-being. But in your response, can you just tell us about the challenges you face when dealing with trying to facilitate an employee well-being program? What are companies getting wrong? And then we'll jump to Mother after you.
And to some degree through my own consultancy, several levels and layers, both, as I said, reactive and response mechanisms. So when there's employees who are struggling, how do you support them, make certain that they get the assistance that they need so that they can get back to work as soon as possible and be as efficient as possible, as well as how do you promote wellness? How do you promote a culture of well-being? Because we absolutely know that a well employee is the one that works the best, really. And it's incredibly essential, even for your bottom line. I think that the last thing that I want to say is that some of the challenges are universal and they are specific to South Africa, which is still the lack of knowledge around psychology and psychiatry and wellness and psychological well-being related to the stigmas I was referring to a little bit earlier, and an aversity to really engage with it, which is especially problematic in our conservative institutions and societies. It's not for Black people, that's absolutely not true. And we really need to engage that before it's too late, because as I said, it can be incredibly lethal, the results of not.
Yeah, we have got 2 minutes left. I want to give Mabo an opportunity to respond. And then before, just a question for you, Zamo, is, can you comment on the media reports from Tinashe, the question? Can you comment on the media reports that COVID-19 survivors have a risk of suffering from some mental health conditions? Mabo, over to you, just responding to Zamo's comments there.
Thank you, Sandy. So I think from a mining perspective, we needed to approach how we supporting our employees in two ways. One being those that are on site and are unable to work from home, and then the other being those that are able to remotely work from home. And we honestly did not take for granted the impact and the flexibilities that was required for people that are working from home. So the challenges really there was reaching out, because sometimes you would want a face-to-face and get to understand how is the person's emotional well-being and psychological well-being, and doing that remotely poses certain challenges. And to mitigate that, we actually enhance on our platforms and our communication tools, where almost every second week we would do a survey where we reach out, we check on, the referrals that we have made through our 24/7 call center. And we had what we call the social contact session and the leadership visibility, visual leadership visibility, where our CEO and EXCO and managers will actually get in touch with their teams and other teams as well, just to check where they are, where are they in the space, how are they feeling, and we will do the push and pull factors. And then we actually really enhanced on our online platforms. And with respect to those that are on site, that are going underground daily, we've had, the buddy system, we've had the coaches, where before the start of a shift starts, you would get a coacher, giving information to people so that
Oi, we're losing Mabo. I'm going to mute her because we can't hear what she's saying now. I think we're losing her. Zamo, if you can just respond to the question, and then afterwards I will just talk about just Mabo. Okay. I think she's
of time. Thank you, Tinashe. It's a great question. The media reports are very, very accurate when they say that there is a higher risk of suffering from mental health conditions. Where I want to insert some nuance and further accuracy is the following. Number one, the particular mental health conditions that a lot of survivors we are seeing are suffering from, and we have the fortune of being able to harness research from Asia, for example, actually Asia and Europe, where people are a lot further, is that there's a great deal of anxiety in the form of PTSD, because it's an incredibly traumatic experience to not just test positive, potentially to go to ICU. So a lot of people are struggling with a trauma response. The second one is a generalized anxiety response because of a heightened awareness of you almost died. And the third one is a lot of panic disorders and anxiety disorders that are related to going outside, like a colleague of mine who was saying that they don't want to go to restaurants. And there's something referred to as agoraphobia, which is the fear of leaving your home. I mean, I part joke there. Though, those are the three kind of big categories that we're seeing. Though I do want to end off by saying, we also should not be alarmists. And as clinicians, we really are putting that message out that, in fact, with a lot of people, there's a great deal of resilience. And if there are protective factors like, and again, I can never echo enough what Mohau speaks about, for example, the custom of cooking together, of really being together, of reassuring yourself. People have a great deal of resilience. So we do not also want to be alarmists in these times.
Thank you so much. We are out of time. Just in terms of the polls, when was the last time we did a team building? Everyone is saying last year. Please note, Mohau's cooking classes are virtual, so you can use that as well. And does your organization have an employee well-being? And I'm assuming Zamo also offers virtual support as well. I know psychologists don't like that, but I think it is support virtual support. And does your organization have an employee well-being program? And most of you guys said yes. So thank you so much for participating. We thank you for letting us run over by 3 minutes. We apologize for the late start. And thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.